Hi, I'm Chasma Smith, founder of Try and Conquer, an inclusive platform for connecting Black, Indigenous women of color to outdoor activities as a healing modality to manage and conquer their health and wellness challenges. We do this through our beta app, which is accessible through your phone or tablet's browser at tryxconquer.app. Currently, we're inviting ambassadors to the platform to lead small group outdoor activities, which you earn money for. If you're an outdoor newbie or veteran with some people skills, then that's you. Head over to our Become an Ambassador tab, create a profile to get started. As a woman founded and woman focused company, it was important that we honored International Women's Day and Women's History Month, right? So we kicked off our inaugural Women in Wellness Summit on Wednesday, and it will continue through Monday, March 8th. This series features a variety of experts, enthusiasts, all sharing knowledge on topics related to outdoor preparation, mental health, and so much more to help encourage and empower women of color with the necessary tools and confidence to venture outdoors. Today, we are joined by Atlang Atty Mompe. Atlang, our Atty, is a public health professional with 10 plus years of experience coordinating health research projects in the US and Botswana. Her experience has focused on applying epidemiologic methods to research infectious diseases such as COVID and HIV/AIDS and STIs, cancer, and women's sexual and reproductive health. Addie can easily immerse herself in the very important work she is so dedicated to, but she also makes time and makes it a point for women, especially women of color, to prioritize their health and follows her own advice by getting outdoors. Her favorite activities include walking and hiking. Before we dive into the session, if you are just joining, I'd like to invite you to feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them there. At the very end, we'll do a Q&A. And with that, Addie, thank you so much for joining us. Will you please let us know in your own words a little bit more about who you are?
All right. Well, thank you so much to all of you who are here on a Saturday at noon. I'd like to thank Chasma and her team for inviting me to be part of this great platform to empower women to venture in the outdoors. So you asked, who am I? I'm a lover of life. I love adventure. I love meeting new people and trying out new things, including traveling to new places and eating different kinds of food from different cultures. And most importantly, which is why we're here, is indulging in the outdoor activities. I'm a nomad in every sense. I hate feeling boxed in. So just to give you a little background about my cultural heritage, I'm originally from Botswana, which is a country in Southern Africa. And we're the country right above South Africa, and majority of my family is still back home, but I have lived, worked, and studied in the US for the past several years. I've always been active, and I think through sports as a young girl in school, so I've been exposed to a lot of those activities, which I have then used in the outdoors. I walk, I run, I cycle, I swim. I've done triathlons, and a few years ago, I did the Maryland Iron Girl triathlon. It's a baby triathlon, and my dream is to really do a half Ironman in Kona in Hawaii. So Chasma, maybe this is something we can do to support women of color, to do this half Ironman, try and conquer. We will conquer really in a post-COVID-19 world. So I'd like to also share that I share my love of the outdoors with my friends. A few years ago, I started like a mini cycling group, which we did it for fun in and around Maryland with some friends from Botswana. And we would even sometimes cycle out of state in Delaware. There's a nice Ocean to Bay bike tour in and around the Ocean City area. And we also did an Amish bike ride. So what I also do sometimes in the summer, I just walk around my neighborhood to de-stress in the evenings, and also hike in and around the mountains in Maryland. Like Sugarloaf is less than 15 minutes away from where I live. And I'll also add that I ski in the winter months, so I'm like all in the outdoors. I learned to ski in Switzerland. I was there for school. So I've always had this thing that I'll be the first person from Botswana to go to the Winter Olympics. So maybe that's another thing to do, Chasma. Create an Olympic group of Black women. But anyway, again, like I said, I share my love for the outdoors with my friends. So one year we went to spend New Year's at Wisp in Deep Creek. And now it's a tradition that they do and share with their kids as well. So, whether it's sunny, raining, or snowing, you can catch me in the outdoors. I find it very therapeutic just to get out in nature. And I think professionally, as Chasma has said, I'm a public health professional. I love public health. I believe it's my calling in life to serve the world with my public health skills. So that is me in a nutshell. Oh.
I love it. And yeah, please go for the Olympics. If I don't make it, I'll definitely be cheering you on. I love the lofty goals. Amazing.
Right.
You have so many outdoor hobbies. I love that you do it regardless of what the weather conditions are. I think that's something that I work towards doing. I grew up in the Midwest where it was always cold and, not so nice in the winters, but I still tried to make it a point to go out, even if it was having a snowball fight and all that. So that's really cool that you actually are active regardless of the weather. So since you do all of these outdoor activities, have you ever gotten lost on one of them, like maybe a hike or some other outdoor excursion?
Right. I think all the time, Chasma, and I think also it depends on my state of mind and what I want when I'm doing that activity, what I want to gain out of it. I think a lot of time is just to stress relieve or to fill my cup again, right? So I'll share two magical outdoor experiences I've had. I think when I turned 30, my other half and I went to Maui in Hawaii. And one of the days we rented bikes and we went to the top of some supposed mystical mountain called Mount Haleakala. We tried to watch the sunrise, but it was misty. So we missed that, but it was still really nice and almost mystical. I don't know how else to say it, magical. And so of course when we were riding down, you can imagine we were wearing raincoats and it's wet and we're cycling down the mountain and we see the rainbow. You almost feel like a unicorn cycling through the rainbow, and when you look down you see the sunshine and the beach. So it's like you're experiencing 4 different types of elements while you're riding down this mountain. So I think I get lost all the time and just try really soak it in, right? And another really kind of magical experience is cycling to Mount Vernon. There's a nice trail, I think, from Alexandria to Mount Vernon, past the airport and into the woods, and it's really nice. And one day it just started raining, there's this big thunderstorm, and I was with my other half again, he's my partner in crime, and we just didn't stop cycling. We just literally weathered the storm, for a lack of a better word, and it just felt good. The rain pouring down on us. And then within 30 minutes, it stopped raining and the sun came out again. So it felt like a cleansing. So, so yes, I get lost all the time and it doesn't matter where it is. And the outdoors really kind of rejuvenate me always. So those are the 2 experiences that always play in my head when I'm looking forward to going outdoors.
At first, I have to say you are an amazing storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
So descriptive and very passionate about it. And I just love the energy that you have in talking about your experiences outdoors and how you feel. Talking about getting lost, I think also with the title of it, I think a lot of people may have automatically assumed we meant physically getting lost, right? Which is possible, if you're going outdoors and hiking. But it's also important to mentally get lost and let your guard down and just be present in that moment and lost to thoughts, lost to what's around you. So thank you for sharing those beautiful experiences. We talked a lot about your professional experience, at the beginning, in your introduction. You're very busy. You've done a lot of amazing what advice do you have for other busy professional women to find time to get outdoors? Because it can be difficult when you're
Right.
amazing as you and doing all these great research projects.
Uh, so, and honestly, Chesma, I still struggle with this. Like if it's crunch time, it's crunch time. I have to show up at work, right? And sometimes, to the detriment of myself, there are times where I'm not always there for myself. But what I do try and do in a 7-day week work day, right, is at least during the week to work out. Summer times, that means at 5 o'clock when I knock off, I either go for a run. Where I live is in Germantown, Maryland. It's very hilly, so I have my favorite hill, and I can, like, at 4:30 my body knows, it's almost time. And I start feeling those like endorphins release. So I run in the evenings, and it really helps ground me or balance me. And right. Or sometimes I work out. Of course, it's COVID. I can't go to the gym, but we've built a mini gym in our living room. So if I can't run, at least just 30 minutes, an hour, just kind of let that stress go, So that's during the week. And then on weekends, I tend to call myself like a weekend warrior. That's when I go out. And, sometimes I go out on a Saturday, sometimes on a Sunday, and it's not all the time, but I choose at least one of the days to go out, and we decide whether we want to cycle or hike or just a walk, even around the park in the neighborhood. It doesn't always have to be strenuous. So I would tell other busy women to make time for yourself. And then sometimes it's just even meditating. I'm slowly, like, this is the year I'm really trying to be intentional about taking care of myself. So even if it's just some kind of meditation or yoga for 30 minutes or 10 minutes, however long you need, so yeah, that's something I'm working on, just to make time for myself, even just an hour in a 24-hour day. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, and also being honest with it. Like,
right. Yeah.
It's not always possible to have this perfectly balanced life where you're always happy and you go to work and you clock out and you don't ever bring work home. Like sometimes, like you mentioned, crunch time is crunch time. You have to, work extra hours. But I think it's really important around how we recover and how we get back to that balance, and how we, like make up for that time that we were so focused on work, and like continue to pour back into ourselves so that we don't get so far off the deep end. Our self-care is just like all the way thrown off. So thank you for sharing that very honest experience with that. So going back to the getting lost and finding time for yourself, what ways have you lost yourself in work, in love, something else? How did you get back to yourself, or a normal version of yourself, when you were lost?
Right. Sometimes we like to resist our bodies. Like, your body always tells you when it's time to slow down. Yeah. But I think when it's crunch time, you just have to kind of ignore it and put on your big girl shoes, Actually, one of my colleagues, or former colleagues, is on the call, and she knows when it was time to produce the report that we wrote. We just have to go in hard and long. But I think I try, and maybe I'll share an experience from last summer where, the research community was learning about COVID. So all of us were writing these intense, like, proposals for COVID to win grants to research COVID. And I was on a team where my direct supervisor lived in Australia. I'm in the US. There's a team in Botswana, and there's a team in Rutgers. So I'd have to wake up at 6:30 in the morning to accommodate my Australian boss or my Botswana bosses. And then sometimes my direct boss and I would talk like 8 p.m. US Eastern time, when it's her mid-morning in Australia. And it took a toll on me. Like, I love the work that I do. That's why I do it. But I think it got to a point where I was like, okay, we set a time. She knew 5 p.m. to like 7 p.m. is when Atty goes for her run. And she'd actually ask me, how was your run? She knows that, between those times. And then we would we would then catch up. So I'd break my day out to accommodate making time for myself. I think initially we just had to submit those proposals, but I think after July, I was like, I need at least some time in the evening, because if she was trying to catch me, say at 6 p.m., that means it's already dark. I cannot go run in the dark. So I think it's just being honest, say, with the people you work with your colleagues, to see how we can meet each other halfway. And, you may not always have that kind of team, but I think if I was to summarize what I'm saying, like sometimes we do have to show up more to work and get through that crunch time. But if you can at least honor your body and ask for the people you work with to help accommodate, especially in a time where we're working remote, you're kind of always expected to be connected online. So how did I find myself? That was just finding ways to accommodate my workspace and ask if we can meet at certain hours so I can give myself that time to rejuvenate. Yes, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important to be honest with ourselves. And I'm seeing this in the chat. Like, yes, our bodies do know, and your body will tell you. It'll down for you, or it'll manifest in like pain or other like not so. I also think it's super important that you advocate for yourself and saying like, hey, I need this time for myself. Or you even share, I go for a run at this time. It's very important. Like if we don't set those boundaries or those needs for the people that are around us, no one knows if we've never communicated. So I think that's also very important and amazing that you shared that and had the space to do that in a professional. You mentioned, the run and your boss knew that.
Yes.
I think I have a kind of feel for it. You do a lot of outdoor activities, but what are your favorite outdoor fitness exercises?
Right. Honestly, it's the cycling. Because it's not as strenuous as running. Like I'm not gonna run all over Maryland. But I can cycle, I can cycle 50 miles and see the scenery around the ocean. And, honestly, like when it would be nice to try it out together, where you can see the ocean and you're smelling it, and then you get off the trail where it's very woodsy, and you feel and smell a different kind of smell that gives you a different kind of feeling, and then maybe you go through a suburb. So it's like at different stages of the ride, you have different emotions, So definitely the cycling, because I can see more for longer and it's not as strenuous. You'll definitely get a good leg day and good cardio, but it's not going to be like running, you know what I mean? And of course, hiking is also nice, but I think the cycling, I move faster and I can see more faster, like to hike 50 miles would be like a 3-day event, So yes, I think the cycling definitely is my favorite sport. Yeah. Outdoor activity. Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Cycling is something I would love to get into as well. I actually haven't ridden a bike since I was a child, and I would not be able to keep up with you. I'll say that.
But that's the thing, Jasmine. I don't do it competitively. It's just like a stroll, it's just fun, and your legs just keep going because you want to see the rest of the trail. Yeah, yes, yeah. And if we get tired, we usually turn back, it is what it is. But what goes up must come down. So if you've done 25 miles, you have to do 25 miles back. So yes.
Very good point. So you don't do it competitively. It's definitely for your mental health. Switching gears a little bit, what are some common misconceptions people have about mental health and addressing it? And then as an add-on to that, how do we combat those misconceptions and communicate more effectively?
Right. I think, unfortunately, the biggest misconception about mental health is the stigma surrounding it. I think also maybe people don't understand it. So sometimes you fear what you don't know, right? So there's society does not treat mental health like any disease, like isn't February like Heart Health Month? Why can't we make it, romanticize it? So essentially, like, mental health is not romanticized. It's a very highly stigmatized disease. And even for the patient dealing with mental health, I've found that sometimes it's even hard for them to accept their condition due to the stigma, and the stigma is everywhere. It's depicted in movies and you name it, and it's always has such a bad connotation. And I think also what makes it harder, unlike other conditions as well, is that oftentimes the support system is also ill prepared. I say this to say, like, imagine if you have a family member who has a mental health episode, you may not be prepared to know how to calm them down so that maybe you can get them to care safely. You may even judge their behavior and think they're being irrational, and yet this person is actually going through a mental health episode, right? So I think what would be important in the treatment plan is getting family members to be part of that, right? So if and when, say, a friend or family member is going for a checkup or is having that episode, to have family members there and to have family-based therapy that, by the way, when you see these signs, usually this is what's going on. So you can be a better advocate and a better support system for that individual. So I think most conditions or health conditions, it's always about, so I'll mention that I have asthma. So I know I need to take my asthma pump, or my asthma meds or my sinus meds, right? It's on me. But something like mental health, you really, really need a good support system, right? And even colleagues, right? I know some instances where people with certain mental health conditions, their bosses also know, so that they can be more accommodating and understand that, it means Atty maybe is unwell. She may be having a mental health episode. So maybe let's call her family, or let's take her to the healthcare facility or provider. So it's very multifaceted. And unfortunately, we don't have those systems in place. We talk about it theoretically, but realistically, it doesn't happen, And so I think that's why it can be so isolating for someone who's dealing with mental health to accept their condition. It's hard for their family to know how to help them, and even the support system. Yeah. So I think misconceptions, highly stigmatized condition, and how we can combat it. It's really talking about it and being given the tools on how to address it in your family. Yeah. Or your social circle, let me say. Yep.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Thank you for sharing that. Also sharing it from obviously your professional lens, but contextualizing it in a way that's very palatable for people and their families. Because mental health, when someone has a mental health issue, it doesn't just affect them; it affects the entire family, because it, something that really should be treated holistically.
Right.
When I worked for the Mental Health Association of Alameda County many years ago, one of the focuses that we did was around family support and caregivers, and making sure that they knew how to recognize the signs would lead up to an episode or a disturbance. Also, some of that work, super proud of this organization. It's called Family Education Resource Center. If anyone's in the Oakland, California area, an amazing resource. But some of the work they also did was around training the Oakland Police Department with, if you get a 911 call, understanding how to recognize what is a mental illness versus, a violent episode, and like helping relate those things. So, all of what you said is so important, and definitely there's so much stigma that we are still working through to this day. So really appreciate your very thoughtful and professional expertise on that. Going deeper into your professional research, You've conducted research on health disparities. Can you share more on how that has informed your personal health as someone who is also part of, the Black female demographic that's negatively affected by many health disparities?
Right. So if I can also honor my colleague Irim, who's on the call, we worked at the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. And so for many years, I was digging into like the national healthcare quality and disparities of health services in the US, right? And time and time again, like our mental health chapter would show us some of the disparities, the racial, ethnic, and gender disparities of mental health services in the US. So for me, as a Black woman, also of African heritage, like coming from the continental Africa, being exposed to those statistics and other scientific research about the detrimental effects of chronic stress and mental health, has been very valuable because I find it makes me more accepting of friends or family who I know who have mental health. Like I said earlier, people fear what they don't know, right? So I think I have tried to my best ability to engage in activities that can rebalance me. And I think I've been very honest that it doesn't happen all the times. There are times where I can go weeks on end and not engage in any of those activities to release that stress. But I know, like, if your body is under chronic stress, it can cause other detrimental health effects, So, so I try educate myself and share some of my tools with some of my friends and or family. Like I think I mentioned this year, I've been really trying to be intentional about taking care of my mental health and my looking into ways to really get out and put myself first, So I think actually now that you asked about some of the research I've done, I remember, if it's okay to share, like I wrote about a paper how the stress I experience, I can actually also pass it on to when I'm pregnant, pass it on to my child. So then you can imagine like this trauma continues. And so I'm really just trying to take care of myself so I can cut that cycle if possible. But definitely, like when I'm reading articles about the detrimental effects of stress, I'm just like, oh my gosh, Atty, you need to take better care of yourself. And then you read the statistics of how Black women are more likely to develop XYZ, and you're just like, it can cause a bit of anxiety, but I appreciate that I have access to that knowledge, because also a lot of people don't have access to that knowledge, So, so just, I think that informs why I try hard to take care of my mental health. Yes, yeah. I have an added advantage of getting those statistics and the information firsthand. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think too, also, having access to information is empowering.
Right.
There's always this phrase of knowledge is power, right? And it's very true. Like, when you have the right information, you can do something about it. You know what? One, like you can name the thing that you're experiencing. You can call the disease what it is, like heart disease or whatever, and then you can seek appropriate treatments for that thing because you have now information. And like you mentioned, being part of this demographic, it can bring feelings of anxiety, but like having that information gives you, some leverage to do something about it and not stay in that place of feeling anxious. And it's also one of the big reasons and big catalysts of why Try and Conquer exists. I personally was affected by anxiety, and then, nearly everything from heart disease to diabetes to stroke, all of those things affected my entire family, the women in particular. And having that firsthand knowledge and experience just from being, a caregiver and being someone who I don't want that to be my reality. Having that knowledge has been so empowering for me. And I want to be able to empower other women with that same knowledge and knowing that you can do something about this. There's, small steps you can take to lower your risks and help you to manage it if you already have, this disease or these symptoms of it. So thank you for sharing all of that. Those are all very great responses to it. So moving on, in mental health and health in general, who do you think is making the greatest advancements in the Black mental health and Black health community? What are they doing?
Right, right. I think honestly, to be fair, I think of late, there's been a lot of Black mental health advocates nationally. So I think it would be unfair to, highlight some and not others, but I will share those that I know and can relate to, right? I think you may know that Taraji P. Henson has been advocating about changing the narrative of mental health amongst African Americans. She has an organization called the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation. So I think I can relate to her as a Black woman, and I've read some of her stories of, being a Black woman in Hollywood and everything that comes with that, so I think most times it's always nice to hear a story from someone who looks like you. She's a Black woman, so I have similar lived experiences, even though she's in a different industry and she's a celebrity. But at the end of the day, our experiences run parallel, right? And I think also something that I just recently found out is therapy for Black girls, and there are many, many, many virtual retreats actually that are found online. I know that Essence had a virtual retreat a few weeks ago, and maybe 2 weeks ago, there was another really nice one hosted by Koya. And it doesn't just focus on Black women, but just all of us in general, right? How we need to be more intentional about taking care of ourselves, how to set boundaries, how to stop being people pleasers, how to put ourselves first. And you can imagine, and this is a question I struggle with, like for so long, you're taught not to be selfish. And then now in your 30s, it's like, actually, you need to be selfish with your time. But then for so long, you've given so much to everyone and you don't even know how to say no anymore. So I think being in this space where I've been going to these retreats to try give me the tools to put myself first, and to see that I'm not the only one going through with whatever I would be experiencing at the time, whether it's imposter syndrome or anxiety or just worrying about the uncertainties in life. So I think there's a lot of there are quite a number of people working within the Black mental health space. And I think also we also need to find the information, like just take time, a quick Google search could give you a few resources that you can lean on. So yeah, that's my response.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing those resources. I love that there's so many more people in this space now. I can recall a time where I was like the therapy for Black girls didn't exist. A time when I was seeking therapy. Now that it does, you can easily find someone in your city with a specific expertise. Like, it's amazing that there are tools and resources available. And thank you for naming those. People can go and find healing. Bringing it back around to healing in nature, how can being out in nature act as a healing agent for mental health?
I think my response to this question is that you have to find what works for you. Like I love everything outdoorsy, right? So whether you find your peace in the mountains, or you find your peace by the seaside, or you find your peace in the woods, or you find your peace by the park, I think we all have to find the elements that kind of our spirit and soul. And again, your body will tell you, It actually now makes sense why sometimes, when you're watching these cartoons like Kung Fu Panda and Master says like, you have the answer in your soul, like most of us have what we need, we are enough. We just need to introspect more and find out what works for us, So for me, like the smell of the ocean, I love that, I also love the solitude walking in the mountain, right? And I also love chasing the wind on my bike. So I guess it depends what I'm looking for and what I get from the outdoors. So I think I had said this to you, Chasma, also. I also don't want to be too prescriptive, because there's just some people who don't like the outdoors, right? And so we have to honor that as well. So I think people need to find what ignites their calmness or fills their cup. Yeah. Oh.
Thank you. Again, there's all these elements of you being such an amazing storyteller and, to get your back. And I'm like, yes, like I can feel it as you're sharing this. I find it amazing to listen to you share all of that. It's so necessary, so needed.
Right.
I want to ask you about how you got to where you are professionally, and
Okay.
what advice do you have for others who want to set off in the same career direction?
I think the theme we're getting at is staying true to yourself and listening to your body. Your body will tell you. I think for as long as I've known I wanted to be in the public health field, I'll say that my interest into public health was HIV/AIDS. Botswana was one of the countries that was hardest hit by the HIV pandemic. And I'm very proud to say we've worked very hard to get epidemic control, of course, with the help of the global entities and our national public health professionals working hard to get us to where we are. But, I've also been exposed to so much, like I said, I've done some health services research, analyzing the quality of healthcare in the US and highlighting the disparities in a report to Congress for 7 years. I've also globally worked with women's sexual and reproductive health work in Botswana. And also something that I did for a bit while I was in Botswana is oncology work. I'd like to say that like potentially cancer is the second wave of HIV, where most of our healthcare systems are not prepared to deal with non-communicable diseases because we've been so busy fighting HIV. And also I dabbled a bit in some COVID work last year. It was the thing to try and understand. So I've just been blessed with all these experiences that I can draw from. But, as you know, it takes a village to raise a child. I had mentors to pull me through the tough times when the imposter syndrome came and I didn't know where to go, or should I take this job, or how should I negotiate? What is a better salary? Just having mentors. And secondly, having a good network. For me, that is like the thing for me that has really worked, is just using LinkedIn to find people in, say, the organizations where I'd like to work, and asking for informational interviews and really selling yourself to them. Like, in 5 minutes, I need to impress you to hire me or consider me for a position, right? So I think networking and informational interviews have really propelled me to where I am. And also, when you're networking, make sure you're building a relationship, like, again, highlighting, we work together and then we no longer work together, but we still talk. When I was looking for jobs after coming back to the US, she would still offer to connect me to people. Even our former bosses were like, Atty, what do you need? I'll write a reference, So make sure you're not always taking, like, make sure you're building good relationships so that in the future, you can always fall back on those people when you need something, or you can be a resource to them. You never know, like, life is a wheel, is ever evolving, so I think staying true to your calling. I always knew public health, and I thought it was HIV, but I've delved in everything, So I would say go with the flow, but you always land back where you really want to go. I'll add that I just actually ended actually I have a great opportunity to work with USAID in the global HIV realm. So from everything else that I've done, I'm going back home to do HIV work. So yeah, so staying true to your calling, having mentors, finding mentors, and building intentional relationships with people in your network, I think would be the advice I have. Yeah. Oh.
Beautiful advice, and I'm nodding along so because it's so true. And these are all things that I've experienced and I'm still experiencing. This summit, for example, is a perfect example of, leveraging your network and building your network. This would not be possible without people like you who are giving of your time and your expertise to make this happen. Like I'm, actively building a network to try and conquer a thing, and also listening to your calling and what speaks to you. That's the outdoors for me. That's helping people find their version of hehealing. And yeah, all of what you said is like, it hits home. It hits home as you go through those things in life, and you always come back to what speaks to you. Thank you for sharing that. So you've given your professional advice, what you can do if they want to set off in their career. What's some practical advice you would give to someone wanting to start out in the outdoors?
Right. So I would say, again, honor yourself. Try different activities, just start off small, like invite a few friends, obviously you have to be safe. I wouldn't advise you to just go on a hike on your own, right? Invite a few friends and make sure you're in a safe space. And you just start off small. It could be a walk in the park, and then next week elevated to go to a mountain in your area. But what I would say is definitely do your research. If you do decide to, say, go to Sugarloaf, find out when it opens, what season it is, anything. Like sometimes you'll see beware of bears or snakes, and I'm like, I'm actually afraid of snakes, even though I'm always outdoors. So do your research, and you obviously have to wear like safe attire, like if you're going to go out and hike, make sure you're wearing sturdy shoes and the right, like, comfortable clothes for you to walk, and make sure you actually have to calculate if you have enough of like energy bars or hydration, like if you're going to do a 5-hour walk, don't take like a small 350 milliliter water bottle. So take time to research the park you're going to walk or whatever activity you're going to do, and make sure you have the necessary energy to keep you going, whether it's like these energy candies, or energy bars and water and sunscreen, so just your basic outdoors safety kind of tools. And also just find out what works for you. I think yesterday, Chasma, when I was listening to one of our colleagues talk how she ended up trying horse riding and loved it. I haven't tried horse riding actually, but
it's amazing.
It is. Okay. So she said she loved that, but so try different things. You just never know where you may land. Don't stick to what everybody else is doing, Yes. Yeah. Find what works. And I think I'll just say to each his own. Yeah.
Very sound, excellent advice. I think the key element there is, preparation, again, access to information. It's there, but also do your job in preparing to come off. You never want to venture off and do something ill prepared just because it looks beautiful, or you've seen some Instagram photo. And that's something that we're working towards, for sure, making sure women are prepared to have, we for sure want people to have the best experience possible so that they can do this and adopt it as
Yes.
lifestyle habits. So in the vein of safety, since you brought up safety, we
Mm-hmm.
actually have the support of an organization called Girls Fight Back, and
Mm-hmm.
they have an amazing like catalog of self-defense and personal safety videos to help
Mm-hmm.
prepare
Mm-hmm.
for venturing outdoors, particularly if you're doing it solo and you're a little apprehensive, and just want to make sure that you have some basic skills to help you stay alert and safe out in the outdoors, but also taking heed to the advice that you gave as well to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you're prepared in terms of like, you know, what times the park closes, you're not going
Mm-hmm.
late before the sun comes down, and you've got the right
Right.
gear and
Mm-hmm.
hydration and food to sustain you to do a hike and like
Mm-hmm.
get back home safely. So
Right.
amazing advice. This was such a great session. I immensely appreciate your time. Is there anything else? I mean, you've poured so much value into this session, but is there anything else you want to leave us with today before we close out our session?
Yes. So I was telling Chasma that after as I was preparing for this talk, I ended up on my Facebook page and I saw this kind of quote that spoke volumes to me. And I guess at the time when I posted on my page, I was going through this magic, and it's by Brooke Hampton. And it goes like this: that no, we don't need more sleep. It's our souls that are tired, not our bodies. We need nature. We need magic. We need adventure. We need freedom. We need truth. We need stillness. We don't need more sleep. We need to wake up and live. So I'll leave everyone with that. And in conclusion to the purpose of this try and conquer and getting women out in the outdoors, just do it and find what works for you and honor your body as well when you're in that journey. Uh,
Amazing. Thank you so much. Again, so beautifully spoken, so well. If there are any comments, please leave them in the chat, or any questions, leave those as well. Or you can feel free to raise your hand and I will unmute you. We've got about 5 minutes before we officially close out, and I want to make sure we give time for folks that have questions or comments or anything they would love to share with Atty or I.
mhm.
There's some shared love for Dr. Joy from
Yes, I saw that.
I love that podcast
Hmm.
as well.
I
Thanking
will
you.
check her out. Hmm. If it's okay to ask though, Chasma, like, can people share their favorite activities? Just a one line. I'd be interested to see what everybody else on the call likes.
Yeah, please do. For folks there, please share what your favorite activity is. That's a really interesting
Mhm.
ask. I'd love to know what everybody's doing.
And you.
And me.
Yes.
Um, my favorite thing, oh man, I have a lot of things that I really love doing, but I probably have
Right.
to say jump rope. It's something that kind
Nice.
of I grew up doing as a kid, and it's something that just like makes me feel alive, and I just love like feeling my hair bounce, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
get a good
Mm-hmm.
cardio workout. And also
Yes.
rope you can take with you anywhere. So if you're traveling, it's a very
Oh.
easy to pack with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do. So very easy go to. And of course, hiking. I love hiking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's some shared love for hiking and being on the water.
Yes. Right.
Awesome.
Hmm.
This was great. Thank you all for sharing what you are doing outdoors. It sounds like we all have some commonalities here with
Mm-hmm.
hiking,
Mm-hmm.
yoga, walks. I love that we're all just like putting ourselves first and continuing to practice self-love and honoring our bodies and our mental health and providing space for that. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you all for taking time today to join this session. Thank you so much, Atty, for your expertise and your amazing storytelling.
Oh.
I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your Saturdays. Thank you again for joining us on your weekend. And there's more to come. So if you're interested in learning about future sessions, check the link in our Instagram bio. We are at Try X Conquer on Instagram, and our bio has all of the sessions. We're again going until Monday, March 8th, which is International Women's Day. And with that, I'll leave you.
Thank you. Bye.